Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. My name doesn't matter here. Kids only know me as Mickey Mouse. I wave, take photos, sign books with oversized gloves. Every day I bring smiles to thousands. That was the job. Then came that day. The park was at full capacity. Families flooding Main Street, the parade music blasting, laughter everywhere. October in Anaheim meant perfect weather, clear skies, and endless crowds of kids in costume for Halloween season. I was stationed near Sleeping Beauty's castle at 10:15 a.m., the morning sun casting everything in that golden Disney glow that made parents reach for their cameras. I knelt down beside a little girl in a princess dress, her father positioning his phone for the perfect shot. Through the mesh eyes of my Mickey head, I could see her gap-toothed smile, could hear her excited whisper about meeting the real Mickey Mouse. These moments, they never got old. That's when the screaming started. At first, we all thought it was part of some new attraction. Disney was always testing interactive experiences, surprise shows, immersive theater. The sound came from behind me, near the castle entrance. Guests turned their heads, some laughing, thinking they were about to witness something special. But the screaming didn't stop. It multiplied. A woman's voice cut through the ambient noise, raw, terror-filled. Then another, then chaos. I stood up slowly, the 40-pound Mickey head making quick movements impossible. Through the costume's limited vision, I caught glimpses of people running, pointing, backing away from something near the moat. The little girl's father stepped in front of his daughter, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. "What's going on over there?" someone called out. A man in a Dodgers jersey stumbled into view, clutching his neck. Red seeped between his fingers. Behind him, another man, middle-aged, wearing a Disney Dad t-shirt, lurched forward with stiff, mechanical movements. His eyes held no recognition, no humanity, just empty focus. The Disney Dad grabbed the Dodgers fan's shoulder and bit down. The crowd around me gasped. A few people laughed nervously, still convinced this was staged. "Wow, Disney's really going all out for Halloween," someone said. But I could see the blood, real blood. Through the mesh of my costume, I watched the Dodgers fan collapse, convulsing. The Disney Dad didn't let go. He kept tearing, kept feeding. A woman screamed, a sound I'll never forget, high-pitched, desperate. More people started backing away, no longer laughing. Parents grabbed their children. The atmosphere shifted from magical to suffocating in seconds. My radio crackled to life in my ear. "All character performers, please report any unusual guest behavior immediately. We have reports of disturbances near Fantasyland." Disturbances. That was Disney's word for everything from drunk guests to medical emergencies. This was something else entirely. The Disney Dad stood up, his face smeared with red. He turned toward the crowd and I saw his eyes, clouded, vacant, yet somehow focused. He moved toward the nearest family, a couple with 2 young boys. "Run!" I shouted, but the Mickey head muffled my voice. I gestured frantically, pointing away from the approaching figure. The father of the boys understood first. He swept up his youngest son and grabbed his wife's hand. "Move, now!" That's when I saw Goofy. Randy was his real name, a 23-year-old college student who'd been working character duty for 2 years. He was positioning himself between the Disney Dad and the fleeing family, staying in character even as chaos erupted around him. Classic Randy. The Disney Dad lunged at him with surprising speed. Randy tried to dodge in the bulky Goofy costume, but the thing caught his arm, yanked him close. I watched in horror as teeth found the gap between Randy's costume sleeve and glove. Randy's scream was muffled by his character head, but I heard it. We all heard it. More screams erupted across the plaza. Near the carousel, I spotted a woman in a floral dress attacking a security guard. By the wishing well, a man in Mickey ears was biting into a teenage girl's shoulder, while her boyfriend tried to pull him off. My radio exploded with chatter. Code gray at Fantasyland. Medical emergency at the hub. Multiple 1054s in progress. I couldn't see everything clearly through the costume, but I didn't need to. The pattern was spreading. Person attacks person. Person convulses. Person stands up different. Then they attack someone else. The little girl I'd been photographing with was crying now, reaching for her father as he tried to carry her away from the chaos. "Mickey!" she called out to me. "Mickey, help!" Everything in my training told me to stay in character, to comfort the children, to maintain the magic. But everything in my gut told me to run. I chose the child. I moved toward them, my oversized shoes slapping against the pavement. The father saw me coming and relief flooded his face. "Thank God, can you help us get out of here?" Before I could respond, something slammed into my back. The Mickey head flew forward, my vision tilting wildly. I stumbled, caught myself, spun around. A woman in a World's Greatest Mom shirt stood behind me, her face pale and streaked with dried blood. Her left arm hung at an odd angle, clearly broken, but she showed no sign of pain. She reached for me again with her good arm. I backed away, bumping into a family trying to escape. The woman followed, her movements jerky but determined. She made no sound except for a low, guttural moan that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her chest. "What's wrong with her?" the father demanded. I didn't answer because I didn't know. This wasn't in any employee handbook. This wasn't a situation they'd covered in orientation. The woman lunged again. This time I was ready. I shoved her back with both hands, feeling the cheap fabric of her shirt tear under my gloves. She stumbled but didn't fall, didn't cry out, didn't react to what should have been painful contact. "Get your family to Main Street," I told the father. "Find a cast member with a radio. Tell them we need evacuation procedures." "What about you?" I looked around the plaza. Chaos was spreading like spilled ink across paper. Guests ran in all directions, some carrying children, others pushing strollers at dangerous speeds. I could see more of those things. Infected people, I guess, stumbling through the crowds, grabbing anyone within reach. I have to help the other kids. It was the truth, but not the whole truth. I had to find Emma. My girlfriend worked in the Plaza Inn food court, about a 10-minute walk through the park under normal circumstances. With the crowds panicking and those things spreading through the area, it might as well have been on another planet. The father nodded, hefted his daughter higher in his arms, and ran toward Main Street with his family. I watched them disappear into the crowd, hoping they'd make it. My radio crackled again. "All cast members proceed to designated emergency positions. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Emergency positions, that meant the tunnels. Disneyland sits on top of an extensive network of underground passages called utility corridors that allow cast members to move around the park without breaking character. Every section of the park has access points, usually hidden behind employee-only doors or disguised as maintenance areas. The nearest entrance was behind the castle, through a door marked cast members only. If I could get there, I could navigate underground to the Plaza Inn area and find Emma. I started moving, pushing through the panicking crowd. The Mickey costume made me a target. Kids reached for me. Parents grabbed my arms, asking for help I couldn't give. I tried to stay focused, tried to remember my emergency training. A hand seized my wrist. I spun around to see a man in a Hawaiian shirt, his face covered in scratches. "Are you okay?" I asked. He didn't answer. His grip tightened and I noticed his eyes, the same vacant stare I'd seen on the others. No recognition, no consciousness, just raw instinct. I yanked my arm free and backed away. He followed, moving with that same mechanical shamble. Behind him, I could see more of them scattered through the crowd. They moved differently than the panicking guests, slower but more deliberate, like they were following some primitive programming. The castle entrance was 50 yards away. I pushed through the crowd, apologizing automatically even though nobody was listening. A teenager in a Gryffindor robe grabbed my arm. "Mickey, my little sister, she's trapped over by the teacups. There's something wrong with the people there, they're attacking everyone." I wanted to help, Every instinct screamed at me to go find the girl, to protect the children like I was supposed to. But I also knew that if I deviated from my path, if I let myself get pulled into every emergency, I'd never reach Emma. "Find a security guard," I told him. "They'll help your sister." It was a lie. Security was overwhelmed, if they were even still functioning, but it was all I could offer. I reached the employee entrance just as my radio erupted with desperate chatter. "Matterhorn station overrun. Multiple casualties at Pirates. We need immediate medical at Space Mountain." I fumbled for my key card with oversized gloves, finally getting the door open. The corridor beyond was mercifully quiet, just the hum of air conditioning and distant sounds of chaos from above. I pulled off the Mickey head, gasping in the cooler air. My hair was soaked with sweat, and my heart hammered against my ribs. For the first time in hours, I could see clearly, think clearly. The utilidors stretched in both directions, white-painted concrete illuminated by fluorescent lights. Normally, these tunnels buzzed with activity, cast members changing costumes, maintenance crews moving equipment, managers shuttling between areas. Now they were empty except for the sound of my footsteps. I started toward the Plaza Inn section, moving as quickly as the costume would allow. Every few yards, I passed doors leading to different areas of the park. Through the walls, I could hear muffled screams, announcements over the park's speaker system, the distant wail of sirens. My radio crackled. "All character performers, Emergency Protocol 7 is now in effect. Proceed immediately to designated safe areas and await further instruction." Protocol 7. I'd heard about it in training but never thought it would be used. Total park evacuation. The kind of thing reserved for terrorist attacks or natural disasters. I tried calling Emma on my radio, switching to her frequency. Static. Then, "Jake? Jake, is that you?" Relief flooded through me. "Emma! Thank God. Where are you?" We're locked in the kitchen storage room. There's about 6 of us here. Jake, something's happening up there. People are attacking each other. Real attacks, not pretend." "I know. I'm in the tunnels heading your way. Stay where you are. Keep the door locked." The manager tried to get everyone to evacuate, but when we went upstairs, her voice broke. "They got him, Jake. Those people, they tore into him like animals. We barely made it back down here." My blood went cold. If the Plaza Inn was compromised, getting to Emma would be nearly impossible, but I had to try. "I'll find a way," I told her. "Just hold on." I picked up my pace, the Mickey suit rustling with each step. Behind me, I heard a door open, footsteps in the corridor. I turned, expecting to see another cast member. Instead, I saw Tom from maintenance, still wearing his work uniform, but his face was wrong, pale, streaked with blood, eyes empty. He moved toward me with that same mechanical gait I'd seen upstairs. Somehow, they'd gotten into the tunnels. I ran through the utilidors, my footsteps echoing off concrete walls. Behind me, Tom's shuffling grew fainter, but I knew he wasn't the only one down here. The tunnels that were supposed to be our sanctuary had been compromised. The Mickey head bounced against my chest as I ran, the weight becoming unbearable. I yanked it off and tossed it aside, grateful to breathe freely again. My hair was matted with sweat, and the cool tunnel air felt like salvation against my skin. Now I wore just the red shorts, yellow shoes, and the padded Mickey torso, still cumbersome, but manageable. My radio crackled. Jake, are you there?" "I'm here," I gasped, still moving. "The tunnels aren't safe. One of them got down here." "How many are up there?" Emma's voice was strained. I tried to think. Through the chaos above, I'd seen dozens of infected guests and cast members. The pattern was spreading faster than anyone could have anticipated. Too many. The whole park might be overrun by now. Static filled the channel before another voice broke through. Someone from security. "All stations, be advised. We have reports of similar incidents at Universal Studios and Knott's Berry Farm. This appears to be regional." Regional. The word hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just Disneyland. Whatever was happening had spread across Southern California. I reached a junction in the tunnels where 3 corridors met. Directional signs pointed toward different areas. Fantasyland, Tomorrowland Plaza Inn. I turned toward the food court, moving as quietly as possible in the oversized shoes. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and I could hear something dripping somewhere in the darkness. Water pipes, I hoped, not blood. A door slammed somewhere behind me, followed by footsteps. Multiple sets of them. They'd found their way down here in numbers. I picked up my pace, no longer caring about noise. The Plaza Inn access tunnel was just ahead, a service elevator that would take me up to the kitchen level. I fumbled for my keycard again, hands shaking. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding that seemed impossibly loud in the confined space. I stepped inside and hit the button for the kitchen level, watching the doors close just as shapes appeared in the tunnel behind me. The elevator rose slowly, and I tried to prepare myself for what I might find above. Emma had said they were locked in the storage room, but that was 20 minutes ago. In this chaos, 20 minutes felt like a lifetime. The doors opened to reveal the Plaza Inn's main kitchen. Normally, this place buzzed with activity, cooks preparing turkey legs and fried chicken, servers grabbing orders, managers coordinating the controlled chaos of feeding thousands of guests daily. Now it was a slaughterhouse. Blood covered the stainless steel surfaces in dark arterial sprays. A cook's white hat sat upended near the fryer, red handprints smeared across the wall above it. The smell hit me immediately. Copper and meat and something else, something rotten that made my stomach lurch. I moved carefully through the kitchen, stepping around overturned pots and scattered utensils. A meat cleaver lay abandoned on the floor, its blade stained. I picked it up, the weight solid and reassuring in my hand. "Emma?" I called softly. No response. The storage room was at the back of the kitchen, past the prep stations and walk-in coolers. I made my way there, trying not to look too closely at the dark stains that seemed to cover every surface. A sound stopped me cold, a wet chewing noise coming from the prep area. I peered around a cabinet and saw him, Dave from day shift, still wearing his Plaza Inn apron. He crouched over something on the floor, tearing into it with his teeth. His movements were mechanical, purposeful, like an animal feeding. I tried to back away quietly, but my foot kicked an empty aluminum pan. The clang rang through the kitchen. Dave's head snapped up, meat hanging from his mouth. His eyes were clouded and vacant, but they fixed on me with disturbing intensity. He stood slowly, chunks of flesh falling from his apron. I raised the cleaver as he lurched toward me. His movements were different from the ones I'd seen outside, less coordinated but more aggressive, like pure instinct had taken over. He knocked over a prep station in his eagerness to reach me, sending knives scattering across the floor. When he got close enough, I swung the cleaver. It connected with his shoulder with a wet thud, but he didn't cry out, didn't even seem to notice. His hands grabbed for my face, fingernails ragged and crusted with dried blood. I shoved him back and swung again, this time connecting with his neck. The blade sank deep and Dave collapsed, finally still. I stood over him, breathing hard, the cleaver dripping in my hand. The storage room door was just ahead. I approached it carefully, listening for any sound from inside. "Emma? It's Jake, are you in there?" A muffled sob came from behind the door, then Emma's voice. "Jake, thank God. Is it safe out there?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm here. Open the door." I heard movement inside, furniture being moved away from the entrance. The door cracked open and Emma's face appeared, pale, tear-stained, but alive. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I nearly collapsed. She threw the door open and fell into my arms. I held her tight, feeling her shake against me. Over her shoulder I could see the others, 3 more cast members from the food court huddled in the storage room among shelves of supplies. "We heard screaming," Emma whispered against my chest. "Dave went upstairs to check, then we heard him screaming too. We tried to help him, but when we got up there..." She pulled back to look at me. "He was different. He tried to attack us." "He's gone," I said quietly. "They're all gone, whatever this is. It's spreading." One of the other survivors, a teenage girl named Beth, spoke up. "The radio said to evacuate, but how can we get out? Those things are everywhere." I thought about the chaos I'd witnessed above ground. The park's evacuation procedures weren't designed for this. Main Street would be a death trap, packed with panicking guests and infected attackers. The parking lot would be just as bad. "The service roads," I said finally. "Behind Critter Country. There's a maintenance gate that leads to the cast member parking lot. If we can get there." "That's halfway across the park," Emma said. "I know. But it's our best shot. The utility doors are compromised and the main exits will be chaos." Through the kitchen's small window, I could see into the Plaza Inn's dining area. Tables and chairs were overturned, food scattered across the floor. A family of 4 sat at a corner table, perfectly still. From this distance, they looked normal, but something about their posture was wrong. Too rigid, too focused. As I watched, a cast member in a Plaza Inn uniform walked past their table. One of the seated figures, a middle-aged man in a Lakers jersey, suddenly lunged from his chair and grabbed the employee. The others at the table joined in with mechanical precision, tearing into their victim while he screamed. I turned away from the window. "We need to go now." I gathered what supplies I could from the storage room: bottles of water, energy bars, a first aid kit. Emma grabbed a large knife from the kitchen, while the others armed themselves with whatever they could find. We looked like a group of restaurant workers preparing for war, which wasn't far from the truth. The service exit from the Plaza Inn led to a backstage area between Critter Country and the rivers of America. From there, we'd have to cross roughly half the park to reach the maintenance gate. Under normal circumstances, it would be a pleasant 10-minute walk through carefully landscaped paths. Now it felt like planning an expedition through hell. I checked my watch, 12:47 p.m. Less than 3 hours since I'd been taking photos with that little girl near the castle. The world had ended while I was wearing a cartoon mouse costume. We made our way through the kitchen to the service exit. I cracked the door open and peered outside. The backstage area was quiet, just concrete walkways and utilitarian buildings that guests never saw. But I could hear sounds in the distance, screams, crashes, the mechanical groaning that seemed to be the infected's only form of communication. "Stay close," I whispered. "If we get separated, everyone heads for the maintenance gate behind Splash Mountain. Don't stop for anything." We slipped outside, moving in single file along the service road. The California sun beat down mercilessly, making the Mickey costume even more stifling. Sweat soaked through the fabric, but I didn't dare remove any more of it. The padding might provide some protection if things went bad. The path took us past the backstage areas of several attractions. Through chain-link fences, I could see parts of the guest areas. Pirates of the Caribbean's queue was packed with people, but they weren't moving. Just standing there, swaying slightly, like they were waiting for something. A scream cut through the air from the direction of Splash Mountain. Emma grabbed my arm, and I felt her nails dig through the costume fabric. We all froze, listening. The scream came again, closer this time. "Move!" I hissed. We picked up our pace, half walking, half jogging along the service road. The maintenance buildings gave way to a loading dock area where delivery trucks normally brought supplies to the various restaurants and shops. Several trucks sat abandoned, their drivers' doors hanging open. A movement caught my eye, someone inside one of the truck cabs. I signaled for the others to stop and approached carefully. The driver was still in his seat, but his head was tilted at an unnatural angle. As I got closer, I could see the bite marks on his neck, the blood that had soaked into his delivery uniform. His eyes snapped open as I approached, milky and unfocused. His hands clawed at the steering wheel as he tried to turn toward me, but his seatbelt held him in place. Low, guttural sounds came from his throat. I backed away slowly. "Keep moving." The maintenance gate was visible now, maybe 200 yards ahead. But between us and safety lay the most dangerous part of our journey. We had to cross a guest pathway near the haunted mansion. As we approached the crossing, I could hear the attraction's usual spiel playing on loop. "Welcome, foolish mortals, to the haunted mansion." The irony wasn't lost on me. We were about to enter the real haunted mansion, the entire park. I peered around the corner of a maintenance building. The pathway was chaos. Guests ran in all directions, some carrying children, others dragging suitcases they should have abandoned. Among them moved the infected, park visitors and cast members alike. pursuing anyone within reach with mindless determination. A family of tourists tried to barricade themselves inside the haunted mansion gift shop, but several infected had followed them inside. Through the windows, I could see shapes moving violently in the darkness. There, I pointed to a gap in the chaos, a brief moment when the path was relatively clear. We run straight across. Don't look back. Don't stop for anyone. Beth was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I can't do this. Emma grabbed her hand. Yes, you can. We all can. Just follow Jake. I gripped the cleaver tighter and stepped out onto the pathway. The sounds hit me immediately, screaming, growling, the wet sounds of tearing flesh. The smell was worse, blood, fear, and something else that reminded me of the meat that had gone bad in my refrigerator during a power outage last summer. We ran. A cast member from the haunted mansion, still wearing her Victorian-era costume, stumbled into our path. Half her face was missing, torn away by teeth marks, but she still moved with purpose. I swung the cleaver without thinking, putting her down before she could reach us. An infected guest in a wheelchair rolled past us, pushed by someone who might have been his caregiver. Both were covered in blood, the man in the wheelchair gnawing on his own arm, while his companion pushed him forward with mechanical precision. We were halfway across when I heard Emma scream behind me. I spun around to see her on the ground, a woman in a Minnie Mouse costume on top of her. The costume's head was gone, revealing a face that was a ruin of bite marks and exposed bone. I grabbed the infected cast member and hauled her off Emma, driving the cleaver into her skull. She went limp immediately, but the damage was done. Emma's arm was bleeding from where the woman's teeth had found the gap between her glove and sleeve. No, Emma whispered, staring at the wound. No. I pulled her to her feet. It's just a scratch. You're fine. But we both knew better. We'd seen how this worked. Bite, convulsion, transformation. The time frame seemed to vary, but the outcome was always the same. The maintenance gate was just ahead. I could see the cast member parking lot beyond it, filled with abandoned cars. Our escape route. But Emma was slowing down, her skin growing pale, sweat beading on her forehead. Jake, she said quietly. I can feel it. Something's happening. The other survivors had reached the gate. Beth was sobbing as she tried to work the lock, her hands shaking too badly to use her keycard properly. I took it from her and swiped us through. The parking lot stretched before us, a sea of empty vehicles baking in the afternoon sun. Somewhere beyond the asphalt lay the rest of Anaheim, the rest of Orange County. If the radio reports were accurate, we might find the same chaos everywhere. Emma collapsed against a car, her breathing becoming labored. Go, she whispered. Take the others and go. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Her eyes were starting to cloud over, taking on that vacant stare I'd seen in all the others. I don't want to hurt you. I knelt beside her, taking her hand. Her skin was burning hot, fever raging through her system. Whatever virus or infection was causing this, it worked fast. I love you, I said. I love you too. Her voice was barely audible. Promise me, when I change, don't let me suffer. I nodded, unable to speak. The others waited by a maintenance truck, giving us space for this final moment. Emma's breathing grew more erratic, her body starting to convulse. I raised the cleaver, hands shaking. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Then her eyes went completely vacant, and she lunged at me with inhuman speed. I did what I had to do. Afterward, I sat beside her body in the parking lot, still wearing the Mickey Mouse costume that had become my uniform for the end of the world. The other survivors approached cautiously, unsure what to say. We should go, Beth finally said, before more of them find us. I looked back at Disneyland, the Magic Kingdom, the happiest place on Earth. Smoke rose from several locations within the park. The Matterhorn was visible above the trees, unchanged and eternal, watching over a kingdom that had fallen in a matter of hours. We found keys in the maintenance truck and drove out of the cast member lot, leaving behind everything I'd ever known. In my rearview mirror, I watched Disneyland grow smaller, the spires and attractions becoming just shapes on the horizon. The radio crackled with emergency broadcasts as we drove through Anaheim. Military checkpoints, evacuation centers, warnings about infected zones. The world beyond the park was just as broken as the one we'd left behind. But we were alive. For now, that had to be enough. As we drove north on the freeway, on the E, I realized I was still wearing Mickey's costume. The red shorts, the yellow shoes, the padded torso, all of it stained with blood and sweat and the end of innocence. I thought about taking it off, but something stopped me. Maybe it was because this costume represented something that no longer existed. The magic, the joy, the belief that there were places in the world where nothing bad could happen. That illusion was gone forever, killed by the same virus that had taken Emma and thousands of others. Or maybe I kept it on because it reminded me of who I'd been before the world ended. Someone whose job was to make children smile, to create moments of pure happiness in an increasingly dark world. The radio crackled again. This is emergency alert system. Remain in your homes. Military forces are establishing quarantine zones around all affected areas. Do not approach anyone showing signs of infection. Too late for that advice. We'd all been exposed now. We were all carrying the infection's shadow with us as we fled north, away from the kingdoms of childhood and into whatever came next. I adjusted the rearview mirror and caught sight of my own reflection. My face was streaked with dirt and blood, but my body was still clothed in the cheerful costume of the most famous mouse in the world. The juxtaposition was surreal. Mickey Mouse at the apocalypse. The happiest place on Earth was gone. But somehow, we were still here. For now. Through the radio static, another voice emerged. Calm, professional, but tinged with desperation. This is Dr. Patricia Williamson at the CDC. We have confirmed that the pathogen is transmitted through saliva contact with open wounds. Symptoms begin within 15 to 30 minutes of exposure. Initial stages include elevated temperature, aggressive behavior, and loss of cognitive function. I turned up the volume. Finally, someone with answers. The infected display heightened physical capabilities but complete loss of human reasoning. They are driven solely by an instinct to attack and feed. Current mortality rate among the infected is 100%. There is no cure. There is no treatment. Avoid contact at all costs. Emma had lasted 23 minutes from bite to transformation. I'd counted. Military containment efforts have failed in Los Angeles, San Diego, and Orange County. The infection is spreading faster than our ability to establish quarantine zones. All civilians are advised to evacuate affected areas immediately. I glanced in the side mirror. Behind us, a column of smoke rose from what looked like the direction of Knott's Berry Farm. How many other theme parks were burning right now? How many other people were driving away from their own personal apocalypses? We are receiving reports of similar outbreaks in Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Sacramento. The pathogen appears to be spreading along major transportation corridors. All air travel has been suspended. All highways leading out of affected zones are under military control. Beth leaned forward from the back seat. Where are we going to go? I didn't have an answer. North seemed like the only option. But if the infection was already in Sacramento, how far would we have to drive to find safety? And what would we find when we got there? Traffic on the 5 freeway was surprisingly light. Most people were probably still trapped in the chaos behind us, or holed up in their homes waiting for rescue that might never come. The few other vehicles on the road were loaded down with belongings, families fleeing just like us. I passed a Honda Civic with a family inside. Parents in the front seat, 2 kids in the back. The father was talking rapidly on his cell phone while the mother clutched a road atlas. Normal people living through the abnormal end of the world. A military helicopter passed overhead, heading south toward the disaster zones. Through the windshield, I could see soldiers inside, armed and ready. They looked young, kids really, sent to fight an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or scared into surrender. The radio continued its litany of horror. Confirmed outbreaks now reported in Fresno, Bakersfield, and Riverside. The pathogen appears to be moving faster than initial projections indicated. Citizens in affected areas should not wait for official evacuation orders. I thought about all the families still trapped in Disneyland, still believing that Disney security and Anaheim police could handle whatever was happening, still thinking this was some kind of elaborate show or terrorist attack, something human, something that could be fixed. The fuel gauge was showing 3/4 full. The maintenance truck had been filled recently, which was lucky. Gas stations would be chaos right now if they were even operating. "Jake," Emma had said my name so many times during our escape. Now I'd never hear her voice again, never see her smile when I came home from work covered in Mickey Mouse fur and complaints about bratty kids and their helicopter parents. "There's a roadblock ahead," Beth said, pointing through the windshield. She was right. About a mile up the freeway, I could see flashing lights and military vehicles blocking the lanes. Cars were backed up for several hundred yards, families standing beside their vehicles arguing with soldiers. I pulled into the slow lane and tried to get a better look. Through the crowd, I could see soldiers in full combat gear checking vehicles, scanning people with handheld devices that looked like metal detectors. Anyone who triggered the devices was being led away to a separate area surrounded by razor wire. They're testing for infection, I realized, looking for people who've been exposed. "But we've all been exposed," Beth said, her voice rising with panic. "We were in the park. We breathed the same air, touched the same surfaces." "Exposure isn't infection," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. "The CDC said it's transmitted through saliva in open wounds. We should be fine." Should be. But looking at the military checkpoint ahead, I realized they might not see it that way. Anyone coming out of the infection zones would be viewed with suspicion. And if those handheld devices detected something we didn't know we carried, I pulled off at the next exit, deciding to take surface streets north. It would take longer, but it might be safer than trying to explain to soldiers why 4 people in blood-stained Disney uniforms should be allowed to pass through their containment line. The exit ramp led into a suburban area that looked eerily normal: strip malls, fast food restaurants, tract housing developments. If not for the distant smoke on the horizon, you might think nothing had happened. But as we drove through a residential neighborhood, I started noticing the details. Too many houses with drawn curtains. Too many empty driveways where cars should be parked. Too many for sale signs that looked hastily planted. "People are already fleeing," I said. "The smart ones anyway. They're not waiting to see how bad it gets." A police car sat in the parking lot of a Vaughn's grocery store, its driver's door hanging open. I slowed down to get a better look. The windshield was spider-webbed with cracks and there were dark stains on the hood that could have been blood. "Don't stop," one of the other survivors said from the back seat. I realized I didn't even know his name. A kid from the Plaza Inn kitchen, maybe 19 years old, who'd been hiding in the storage room when everything went bad. "I wasn't planning to," I said, accelerating past the abandoned police car. But the scene bothered me. If the cops were already gone, what did that say about the rest of the area? How far had the infection spread while we were trapped in Disneyland? My phone buzzed with an emergency alert. "Extreme emergency, zombie outbreak. Seek immediate shelter. Avoid all human contact." Zombie. There it was, the word nobody had wanted to use. Official acknowledgement that we were living through every horror movie ever made. "Jesus," Beth whispered, staring at her own phone. "They're actually calling them zombies. Does it matter what we call them?" I asked. "Dead or infected or zombie, they're all trying to kill us." But somehow having an official name for the nightmare made it more real. This wasn't some unknown pathogen or chemical spill or terrorist attack. This was a zombie outbreak, complete with all the implications that carried. We drove in silence for several minutes, each lost in our own thoughts. The radio continued its emergency broadcasts, but the information was becoming repetitive. Stay inside. Avoid the infected. Seek higher ground. Don't trust anyone showing symptoms. Helpful advice if you were safe in your living room. Less useful when you were 4 refugees driving through potentially infected territory in a stolen maintenance truck. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded me uncomfortably of the fires we'd left behind. Soon it would be dark, and I had no idea what that might mean for our safety. "We need to find shelter for the night," I said. "Somewhere secure, away from population centers." "What about that?" Beth pointed to a sign for a state campground in the hills east of the freeway. "Campgrounds have facilities but aren't too crowded." It was a good idea. Isolated but not completely wild. The kind of place where we could see anyone approaching, where we could build a fire and take turns keeping watch. I turned off the main road and headed into the hills. The maintenance truck handled the winding mountain roads well, and soon we were surrounded by chaparral and live oaks instead of suburbs and strip malls. The campground was almost empty, just a few RVs parked in sites near the entrance. Most of the owners seemed to have fled, leaving their vehicles behind like modern covered wagons abandoned on the trail. I pulled into a site at the far end of the campground, backing the truck up against a large boulder that would protect our rear. From here, we could see anyone approaching from 3 directions. As we set up our temporary camp, using supplies from the truck and what little we'd grabbed from the Plaza Inn, I found myself thinking about the little girl I'd been photographing with when everything started. She'd called out to me as her father carried her away. "Mickey, help!" I hadn't been able to help her then. I could only hope she and her family had made it out of the park, out of Orange County, away from the spreading nightmare that had swallowed the happiest place on earth. The radio crackled with a new voice, different from the official emergency broadcasts. "This is Sierra Base calling any survivors in Southern California. We have established a safe zone in the mountains east of Bakersfield. Repeat, safe zone at GPS coordinates 35.4676, 118.8765. We have food, water, medical supplies, and defensive positions. All uninfected civilians welcome. Travel only during daylight hours. Avoid all major highways." Beth grabbed a piece of paper and scribbled down the coordinates. "That's got to be, what, 200 miles from here?" "At least," I said. "But it's something. A destination." As darkness fell over our campsite, I realized I was still wearing the Mickey Mouse costume. The red shorts and yellow shoes seemed absurd in this new world, a reminder of innocence that had died with the first bite. But I kept wearing it anyway, because somewhere in the darkness behind us, Disneyland still burned, and someone needed to remember what we'd lost. The happiest place on earth was gone, but we were still here for now.